top story. Maria Corina Machado says she's ready to head back to Venezuela as soon as possible and run in free elections. The Nobel Peace Prize winner is Venezuela's main opposition leader, and she is thought to hold significant popular support in the country. She was barred from running in the 2024 presidential elections against Nicolas Maduro. Now, in her first public comments since Maduro was seized by American forces, Machado also praised Donald Trump. Here's a little of what she had to say.
I mean, January 3rd will go down in history as the day justice defeated a tyranny. It's a milestone, and it's not only huge for the Venezuelan people and our future. I think it's a huge step for humanity, for freedom and human dignity.
Well, covering this story for us today from our International Affairs desk is Andrew Hilliar. And Andrew, Machado spent quite a bit of that interview there trying to appeal to the US President Donald Trump pretty directly. Just take us through what some of the key points were.
Yeah, she did try in several ways to appeal to Donald Trump. For starters, she even offered at one point to share her Nobel Peace Prize with him. She really used that interview, especially to criticize as much as possible the current crop of political figures in Venezuela, reserving her sharpest criticism for acting President Delcy Rodriguez, tying her to Nicolas Maduro. I think it's worth reminding viewers just of the fact that Maduro may be gone, but who's left? Well, of course, Delcy Rodriguez, the acting president. Her brother, head of the National Assembly, Diosdado Cabello, the Interior Minister, of whom we saw photos on Monday patrolling the streets of Caracas with security forces, and Vladimir Padrino Lopez, the Defense Minister, head of the powerful armed forces. All those figures still running the show in Venezuela as things stand. And the point is that Machado is stressing here that the Maduro regime is still intact. The problem for her is that Donald Trump isn't framing this around, for the time being, democracy and human rights. He appears to be mainly framing it around oil. Now, she knows that. She knows who her target audience is. One phrase that really stood out during that interview is that she said she would turn Venezuela into an energy hub for the Americas and promised to protect provide protection for foreign investment. Of course, memory is still fresh of ExxonMobil and ConocoPhillips leaving Venezuela in 2007. Memories fresh for oil executives in particular. She also promised to dismantle criminal structures and said she'd bring back the millions of Venezuelans who had fled the country. The problem is, for now, this does appear to be falling on deaf ears because, as we know, Donald Trump has declined to throw his support behind the opposition.
Right, and many people were surprised by that when Donald Trump made his press conference after the capture of Maduro. Why is he apparently not that interested in working now with Machado?
Well, let's just remind viewers again, start with those comments that Trump made over the weekend following the operation against Nicolas Maduro. He said it would be tough for Machado to be leader. He said she didn't have the support or respect in the country. Of course, this will have been received like a slap in the face for someone who has spent months, if not longer, really trying to win Trump over. Now, the New York Times is reporting that U.S. intelligence warned the Trump administration beforehand that if the opposition were to be handed power or were to win power in Venezuela, it could lead to instability. It could lead to rival factions competing for power, leading to the need potentially for a U.S. military presence. Now, that's something, of course, that Washington wants to avoid at all costs. There were also reports that Machado's relationship with Trump officials had been souring over the past year. They were critical, reportedly, of her ability to reach out and build a coalition within Venezuela. That's because Machado has categorically rejected talking or even associating with the Maduro government. She has even called for the imprisonment of military officials, of the political leadership. And while that may have earned her the respect of many Venezuelans, it does mean that she's essentially been locked out of power on the ground and, incidentally, alienated from the business elite in Venezuela. Of course, maintaining that network of contact with business elites, that's something that the Trump administration will presumably want to do going forward. And this is just something that analysts have been saying too, that Machado simply does not have much sway, if any, in the institutions of power in Venezuela. Those have all fallen under the sway of Nicolas Maduro's regime, which is likely why Washington is banking on using coercion to get the current leaders in Venezuela, the current political figures, to do what it wants instead of risking installing Machado, a move which could lead to more instability. Of course, the jury's still out on whether or not